So today I'm speaking with James from Lupine Racing, one of the more unique event formats that are out there. And we've worked with Lupine Racing for probably the last 3 years or so now. So we've seen how the event has kind of evolved over time, although we see the medal part more than the event. And that's why I thought it would make it really interesting to bring James in here to talk about the event. It's kind of more than just a one-off event, and it's something that you seem to have refined kind of year after year. They're not what people would probably consider a traditional race, I would think. How would you exactly kind of describe Lupine Racing in a nutshell?
Yeah, so it has evolved. I mean, initially it was like a 1 week train and bus based race from London to Istanbul, but we've expanded a bit over time, and we've thought about what are we? And we kind of think it's public transport challenges is sort of what we do. So recently, everything from 1 day based city challenges, which are kind of closer to traditional scavenger hunts that a lot of people do, all the way through to our more ambitious continent or country wide multi-day events.
Wow. Okay. So again, really different then to what kind of people would initially think, because I think people associate medals and stuff with sports more than they do with travel racing, which is maybe the kind of a decent bracket to put it in. When you think about what made you start doing it, what was the kind of origin? What made you go down this route? What started it all?
Yeah, so we're a spin-off of a group tour company called Lupine Travel, and
Okay.
I used to go and lead a lot of our group tours. And we had a lot of clients who wanted to do an event called the Mongol Rally, if you've ever heard of that, where people drive from the UK to Mongolia or Siberia in Russia.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
we had a lot of clients who couldn't get the 5 to 6 weeks off work to do an event like that, or they couldn't drive, or it was quite an intimidating prospect. And so we sort of initially the idea was to do like a 1 week or 2 week car rally, and then kind of started to think about how to uh, maybe get rid of vehicles and do it around public transport. And then I'm into cycling, and there's a bike race called the Transcontinental Bike Race. And the
Yeah.
first edition was from London to Istanbul with like a handful of checkpoints along the way. So took inspiration from that. But for public transport racing to work, what our main mechanism is the checkpoints are announced on the start line. So it's a game of being able to plan very quickly. Whereas if we
Yeah.
announce the checkpoints ahead of time, everybody would like end up on the exact same route, more
Area.
or less.
Yeah.
So that's how it all came together, really. And then it was a bit of a publicity stunt, really, for our group tours initially, but it's grown into its whole category, really, now.
Separate entity almost type thing. When I was watching some of the videos, obviously it's quite a good concept for social media. Generally, I think social media grabs it quite well, especially the people who you've got doing it at the minute anyway, or people who are
Mm.
posting about it. And one of the ways it kind of looked like orienteering as well, a little bit of it. So they were looking because I've done the OMM Light. I did that last year or so, I think it was, where they go right. Here's your map and here are all the points on the map that you can go to. And for each one you go to, depending on how far out you go, then these are kind of the more extreme areas to go. And this is how many points they get. And then the closer in you get, for that you can kind of collect up some. And I thought that was a really interesting kind of format for it. And I think I'm certainly interested in doing one day anyway, because I love to travel and I think it combines the elements as well. What do people tend to say that they get out of this sort of event as opposed to a more traditional event, would you say? What do
Yeah,
they
I
feedback
mean,
to?
there's about half a dozen reasons why people do it. So we've got at one end, we've got people who are really passionate about public transport and little sort of personality type of people who might be really into board games and things like that. So it's
Okay.
like it's really about the puzzle and the competitiveness. Other end of it, like we get a lot of people that do it off the back of Steam TV shows like Race Across the World or The Amazing Race in the US, or
Yeah.
increasingly the YouTube channel Jetlag the Game, which is similar sort of stuff like travel challenges, public transport based challenges. So there's a bunch of people doing it from the game perspective. We also do charity events and some corporate events, and the feedback from those demographics is that it's the kind of team building activity, which is like not necessarily people being grouped up in the same ways. If you were doing like a company sponsored 10K, if you were doing
Okay.
a running event, what you might have is demographics who are already friends in a company. So
Yeah.
young lads would stick together for the 10K and aim for the same pace, whereas an older demographic in a company might stick together and do the 10K at a slower pace. And you've not got that cross demographic team building.
Yeah.
Whereas the companies that have booked our events, they create teams which are much more mixed demographic because it's not so bound to physical ability.
Yeah.
They've had much more, yeah, like cross demographic friendship building and camaraderie and stuff like that. So
That's interesting that you've got that level of like accessibility there as well. Kind of. So you're saying like it marries the different groups of people who do it, and I suppose not just even in a corporate environment, but those who as well take part in the event. It's not just going to be it appeals to one age group, it appeals to a wide range because of the type of event that it is, which is really cool. And it's interesting as well that it has that effect on being able to kind of put people together, like you say, in the puzzle mindset as well. So almost like, I suppose, for those people who haven't done one before, maybe similar to like that of like an escape room where the people in the mix of the team aren't necessarily integral because they've got specific skill in this, that, and the other. It's kind of the working together and making a plan and how you execute that plan that's the kind of success of the mission. What do they normally remember most after they've finished one of your events? What's the feedback like afterwards? What are the kind of top three things that they tend to remember when they've done one of your events?
the community element of it actually is a really big one, and it's we get a lot of people that keep coming back. And it wasn't something we initially thought this might be the sort of thing people do once, and it's like it's such a unique thing. You're not necessarily going to keep coming back. But
Yeah.
it's the community element. So we foster that with like during the events, there's online communities where people are in touch. But what's been interesting is that someone struggling to navigate the transport network of Europe, the people the winners who maybe have already finished, they're not there gatekeeping that information. A lot of these winners, the people that win it, are so passionate. They then spend the next couple of days in the group chat assisting people who are struggling and giving them tips. They run into each other along the way. So
You were saying about how kind of it's the community and the camaraderie that kind of bring people back together. And I think that's, that's quite unique. And it, again, like things like puzzles and things like people like to see other people succeed, don't they? And that's quite an important bit. And you said that this normally leads to repeat participation. People often come back. How many times do they normally come back for your events, sort of
I
thing?
mean, we've got 3 people that have done every single event.
Wow.
And this year is the first year where there's more events than could be reasonably done with an annual leave allowance. And people are a bit upset about that because it's the first time where they can't do everything.
Yeah.
And that's the cohort of people who've found our very, very first event. So we have people that have like discovered us on our. We've done about 10 public events now. We've got people that discovered us on the 5th one, and they've done every single one since.
Wow.
Um, so one of the things we were conscious of is I don't know about yourself, but I'm like a chronic over planner, which is quite good when you organise events. But every time I go on holiday, I plan it down into minutia, and it almost makes it like a stressful event in a way.
Okay.
One other element of this was the concept that people can't pre-plan. They can pre-research and try and understand the transport networks of a given city or region,
Yeah.
but it's still a surprise. And we work hard. The checkpoints are not just in your major cities. They're not in some of them may be in a major city, but they're usually not in places like, Berlin or Frankfurt and stuff like that. We find what we call like hidden gems.
Okay. So less common knowledge then.
Yeah, because you're sending into some race to Slovenia has got 200 people on it. If we send them to Berlin, probably half of them will have been to Berlin, so it's sort of a waste of a pit stop for them. So we try and on past events, we've done stuff like Rothenburg or the Taube, where Chissy Chissy Bang Bang was filmed,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So places that people are far less likely to have visited before. So there's a lot of people that really enjoy that. We do that research for them, and they get to go somewhere new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good because I mean, you say you're a chronic over planner. I'm a chronic under planner and a master of improvisation at the very last minute. Whereas my partner, she's very much a chronic over planner to the point where we're like, will we ever decide on where to go? Because these options are all whittling down to something very, very small. What's another thing that you prioritize when you're planning an event of this style that's kind of high up on your priorities to get right?
I mean, it's setting the correct level of difficulty. So we have some events, like you say, which are a bit like an orienteering challenge. So those ones, there's sort of a huge number of checkpoints, each worth points. We base it on an orienteering format from Australia called row gaining, if you've heard that name. I think people just call it like an orienteering challenge or something like that. I think it's an Australian term. But we also have these other races, which we call like linear races, point to point, where it's purely more about speed via a set of given checkpoints. We do a lot of work with those to set the difficulty correctly. The events last about a week, but a good chunk of the people are doing it basically as slowly as the cutoff allows. And it's a
Okay.
mystery adventure along the way. So we have to set the difficulty so that those people can complete it with hotels every night and hanging out in cities in the evening, but
Okay.
also make sure it's enough of a challenge for the people that want a really meaty challenge out of it. So we kind of have to model it and estimate it so that the winners are going to come in about 2.5 days, and then the people that are having an adventure, it's not too difficult. The scavenger hunt kind of format is one where you can take it as easy or as difficult as you want, really. But the linear ones, it's balancing the difficulty correctly is something which we work really hard on. So we've got all of our past data and past timings from previous events, and kind of we simulate models of how we think it's going to pan out.
Okay.
Increasingly, we get the estimates like really accurate. I think we predicted the winner by about 15 minutes last time, but on some of the earlier events, we were out by a bit more. But over time, the model improves.
That's interesting that, to make sure that it's fun for everybody so that no matter what level they're participating at, that it still feels attainable and still gets it within kind of the goals that you need it to be.